Now, Mike Carlson rejoins us to talk to us about the Chiefs against the 49ers. Mike, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning again.
That's better. Let's start with Patrick Mahomes, right? Because Patrick Mahomes was absolutely sensational. I'm talking about him, Leo Messi. He's like Michael Jordan. He's LeBron James in that Game 7 where eventually he gets the Cavs over the line. It's an astonishing level of performance that we're seeing from somebody so incredibly young when you put the context all together.
Yeah, what about it? It's not throwing a big, but the sense he has a veteran quarterback of knowing what's happened. There was an interesting bit from Troy Aikman in the commentary, who was a quarterback, pointing out that what Mahomes does is watch the receivers. And then watch the defensive backs. So he's actually throwing to his receivers in spots where the defensive backs can't get to the ball, which is a mark of a really talented quarterback. And this is a guy, I think, with basically, he's a gamer. He's got that athletic nous that the really great ones have, the ability to see the game in slow motion. And I think you were talking earlier about the way he seemed to just sort of skip into the end zone on that run for a touchdown. And it was as if the game was going in slow motion for him, and he evaded tacklers when he had to, and then he ran through them when he had to.
Yeah, this was another come-from-behind performance against the Titans. And when you were talking about the match and the build-up, for anybody who was making a case for the Titans, they had to go up early, they had to get a lead, they had to be able to control the clock. They did everything they had to do to try and win the game, but still they didn't actually ever feel like they were capable of winning the game.
No, that's exactly what happened. To win the game, they had to keep it close. They couldn't play from behind, and basically from the first time that they were stopped, when Kansas City got their first stop, you sort of got the feeling that was going to be it for the Titans. And as soon as Kansas City went up by a couple of scores, then they had to abandon their game plan completely, and there was nothing that they could do to keep up. It was like, the week before against Baltimore had come out and made mistakes in the first quarter. When Travis Kelce dropped the ball in the first quarter of this game, I thought, oh, here we go again. The Chiefs are going to hand them a lead and then come back, and that's what happened. But Tennessee's not really equipped to play from behind. It's hard to do when you're running a run first kind of team, a play action team that has to go up and down the field based on that.
This team had a brilliant offense over the last 18 months, and everybody kind of knew that the offense was absolutely sensational. At the start of the year, though, the defense was coming in for criticism, and last year they fired the defensive coordinator in the aftermath of the championship game against the Patriots. So there were significant doubts. After week 11 this year, their defense is as good as anything in the league. So something happened in the middle of the season where they started to put it all together. I don't know what that was, but certainly the trend is absolutely their friend at the moment in terms of how they've managed to turn that around. What's behind that?
Well, there's two things. One is Steve Spagnuolo, the coordinator. And if he comes up with a game plan to stop the 49ers in the Super Bowl, he's headed for the Hall of Fame as an assistant coach, because it was his game plan in 2007 that beat the unbeaten Patriots in that Super Bowl. And I think it took a while for the team to get what he was doing, because it was so different from what they had done before. But the other part of that was that they got players back healthy in the second half of the season, particularly Dee Ford, Chris Jones. They got Tyrann Mathieu started to understand what he was supposed to do, when he was in. They lost the rookie safety Juan Thornhill, but they seem to have gotten past that. And to be honest, Sorensen has played really well the last 2 weeks. Tackling, he made a couple of open field tackles in this game, like the one he made the week before on a fake punt, that were really spectacular and stopped big gains from happening. But I think that's basically what it is. You could argue Tyrann Mathieu was the defensive MVP of the league the last 6-7 games of the season. It'll be interesting to see where that vote goes between him and, say, Stephon Gilmore. I think teams can figure they can stop Kansas City by doing what New England did, sort of, and you blanket the top of the field so that they can't throw past you. They have to get all the yardage underneath, which is kind of what you'll do with San Francisco as well if you can. But you have to be able to stop the run against Tennessee. They're going to have to be able to stop the run against San Francisco.
Yeah, so the 49ers game was out of hand at halftime. The Green Bay Packers made a bit of a comeback with 3 successive touchdowns at the very start of the second half, but essentially the game was cooked by that point on the basis of the run game that the San Francisco 49ers employed. Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball 8 or 9 times over the course of the entire game. There was 90 minutes of real time where he didn't throw the ball a single time, where they just ran and ran and ran, mostly with Raheem Mostert, who set all sorts of records for the 49ers and for the run game generally. I think he's the third most successful rusher in a playoff game in history, and ran in 4 touchdowns, which is one off the record. So just the stats all lined up for a historic level of run game performance from the 49ers. How well will that serve them in the Super Bowl? How does that match up then against the Chiefs?
Well, it's a great thing to be coming off from, because you have to. The Chiefs are going to have to plan on stopping the run. Now they did a good job against Derrick Henry, but that depends a lot on getting the lead. And football's so situational, because lots of times your runners run up big numbers because you have a lead, and you're running the ball more to wear the clock out, to protect the ball, not do anything dangerously. If you had said to me, if I hadn't seen the games, and you'd said, 220 yards rushing from a tailback, and the quarterback only threw 8 passes, I would have thought, Tennessee won running away. But it was the Chiefs. Now they won't have, probably, I don't know, because I haven't seen the report on the injury, but Tevin Coleman looked like that's a pretty serious elbow injury, and he might not be back. But they have Matt Breida, they have Wilson as to be the new third back, so that they're pretty well set at running back. And Mostert, it was great for me to see, because years ago I used to do Big Ten games and Notre Dame games for Eurosport, and we used to get sort of the second or third choice game, which meant that we did schools like Purdue a lot. Mostert was at Purdue, and he had obvious talent, but of course on a not so great team, so teams could key on him. And when in the draft Mostert was taken, everybody was saying, well, he's kind of a return player, gadget player. Nobody looked at him as being a sort of full-time running back, and I'm really pleased for him and for the 49ers that Kyle Shanahan realized that this guy was a real talent as a full-time running back if you could give him the right kind of situation to run in. And the number of times, 3-4 times that he and Deebo Samuel were sort of one tackle away from breaking another touchdown. They were lucky to be stopped for that much yardage, because they were really running with almost free through the front seven of Green Bay, and I think the Chiefs are a little bit stronger up front than Green Bay is with when Chris Jones is healthy, with Kenny Clark. Mike Pennell had a really good game, the guy they picked up after the Jets and Patriots both cast him off before and during the season. So I think that's going to be a really tough task for Spagnuolo to game plan against. And in a sense, the best defense for Kansas City will be their offense. If Kansas City can go up by 10 points, 14 points, they kind of force San Francisco into the air. And although San Francisco's got some very talented receivers in Kittle, in Deebo, in Emmanuel Sanders, they are another horizontal kind of running passing team, not a vertical team. They're not really a big chunk team, which is kind of what the Packers are. It was kind of, the Packers is amazing, because if it's not Devontae Adams, Rodgers has to wait and see who gets open, which is the problem with all of his receivers, is that they're not the kind of guys who jump open off the line. And I said at one point last night that, before there was Patrick Mahomes, there was Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers used to do what Mahomes does now, drop back, very, very calm, very, very casual, very collected, take a step to the left, step to the right, step back another step, and then find somebody. Well, Rodgers couldn't do that anymore. He looked hesitant with the ball. He fumbled a couple of times. He got sacked. And apart from that one pass to Devontae Adams, where you saw vintage Aaron Rodgers, I just had the thought that this is the season that the old quarterbacks are fading away. Eli is pretty much gone. Tom Brady looks like he's having his problems. Rodgers is having his problems. Phillip Rivers is probably leaving San Diego to go somewhere else. And the new era of quarterbacks, the new generation, is really taking over now.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing, just to leave this, that the trouble that San Francisco 49ers have had in games this year, the two games against Arizona, Arizona played them really well. The two games against Seattle played them really well, and they couldn't contain Lamar Jackson as well. There was a mobile quarterback who was able to move and keep that pass rush a little bit hesitant, and that's exactly what they're facing in Patrick Mahomes. And so I think the line is a single point at the moment. I would actually make Kansas City a little bit more favourites heading into this final.
I think Kansas City was 1.5 before this weekend, and at halftime it was even. So if it's gone up to a point, I'm not sure now. You've got 2 weeks to prepare, which is probably a good thing for both teams. And one thing about those San Francisco games, they were tight, and Robbie Gould was hurt early in the year. They had a replacement kicker in for a while. He looked like he's back. He's back in his. Excuse me. He's back in his top form. He had a 54-yard field goal. He was 3 for 3, and that means if the game's close, you've got two really good kickers as well. So I think the line will not go beyond about 1.5 to either team, and I think Kansas City probably will be the favorites. Although my bet noir of recency bias would mean that San Francisco, because they played more recently, probably should be the favorites. But I think teams will look. I think the bookies will look at that Kansas City offense and think that's going to be the definer, because it's based on skill, on one player's overwhelming skill, rather than the team's the coach's scheming, and that to me maybe will be the difference.
All right, we're going to get to do this again in person on Wednesday night. You're coming over for a show.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd give that a plug. I'll be over for the snap 6:30 on Wednesday night, and I could be caught walking around Dublin for an hour or so beforehand, and an hour or so on Thursday morning if I'm lucky.
Great stuff. Well, we're really looking forward to it. It's already sold out, and anybody who's not coming on Wednesday night is going to get the opportunity to see it on Friday. I'm really looking forward to it. Mike, thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Jer. See you on Wednesday.
That's Mike Carlson there, who is coming over to the Woolshed with us to do our live show on Wednesday. It's called The Snap, and if you haven't subscribed to it already, you can wherever you get your podcasts. Best places on the Go Loud app, and of course you can see it on all of our social channels live every Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock.